I want you to imagine that you're a leaf on a tree, and when the breeze blows, you get a warm ray of sunlight that makes you feel like nothing could ever be wrong with the world. But the sunlight never stays forever. Sometimes it's cold. Sometimes you feel the ground swell and shake, and the other leaves you spent your whole life around fall to the forest floor, never to be seen again. Again, the wind blows, and you can see right to the top of the tree. Up there are golden leaves basking in an endless sunlight, surrounded by wonderfully bright flowers. You wonder what it must be like up there. But again, the wind blows, and you're surrounded by darkness. The leaves around you start vibrating and shaking. You hear things like, "Our tree is so big and so strong, so why question it?" And this keeps you going through the dark night until the next sunrise. So that visualization was to help you with today's topic, which is about social organization in the Roman Republic. We'll be using the history ecosystem framework, where society is represented as a tree in a forest. The tree branches are the institutions, and the leaves are the people who are organized into social hierarchies. And a link to the framework deep dive is in the video description. So the trunk of Roman society grew from the soil of its past. Rome was first a monarchy with a king, which was then replaced with the two consuls who could only rule for 1 year. This change in power structures did not change much in terms of the social system. Society still had a ruling class and a subject class, the wealthy aristocratic patricians up the top, and the lowly plebeians or plebs at the bottom. Yes, both patricians and plebs were now citizens of a republic instead of subjects of a king, and they could also vote to influence society. But each citizen's vote was weighted, meaning your vote counted more if you had more wealth and property, which was recorded in the census. The upper classes also got to vote first, and this meant that often the votes of the poor were never even counted because voting would stop once the majority decision had been made. At the very bottom of the hierarchy, below the plebs, were the non-citizen slaves, who were considered to be property rather than people. They were bought and sold into forced labor as farmers, servants, and miners. They could later become free and participate in the economy, but they were always treated as inferior. Then we have the lower and middle class citizens like plebs and farmers, as well as traders and artisans. Closer to the top were the equestrians or military horsemen, and these people could afford their own horse and military gear. And later they transformed into a wealthy landowning social class. Then we have the upper citizens who held the most prized political offices, including the two consuls, the senators, and elite magistrates. So this hierarchy was clear-cut, but it also contained a lot of paradoxes. For one, Roman society was both hierarchical and extremely meritocratic. Glory and honor often meant more than family background or wealth. This meant you had to keep earning your spot at the top of the tree through successful military commands and political prowess. So what sort of kept this social system going was the patron-client system, and this justified the hierarchy. So the poorer citizens actually depended on their wealthy patrons for legal assistance, financial support, employment, protection, and power. There were no social welfare institutions like the ones we have today. There was no Medicare, there was no public education, there was nothing like that. So this meant that the poor were often eternally tied to their patrons. Rome's success also kept the class system alive. Its citizens couldn't question the social order without also questioning Rome's identity as an expanding and thriving imperial power. And this really helps us explain the visualization we did at the start of the video, where the leaves at the bottom vibrate and justify the status quo despite their poor treatment in the social ecosystem. Now, I'm not saying that the leaves at the bottom of the hierarchy never stood up for themselves. But even when the plebs did revolt and had a chance to change society, they didn't ask for absolute equality. They just wanted an equal chance to compete, to gain power, and to move up the social ladder. Now, I want you to think about where you sit on the social hierarchy. In Australia, we might not think there even is one. But if you could change society, what would you change? And what does your answer say about you and your position in society? And maybe even compare this to a Roman pleb. What I'm getting at here is that the things we say and what we believe about society don't come from nowhere. They are a product of the ecosystem we inhabit. So the Romans, they were products of their specific ecosystem. Stability, military strength, social order, and glory meant much more than equality or universal human rights. So I hope this gave you a bit of an insight into the social organization of the Roman Republic. And next time we'll dive a little deeper into the cultural atmosphere of the Republic. See you then.